Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, my goal is to have some fun in the Open Ultra League. Today, I invested a ton of Stardust to power up an XL Palossand. I'm bringing it to the Ultra League, and let's see if we can get some wins with it. Now, it goes without saying, XL Palossand definitely more of a mon for fun than for climbing, but today, I'm going to see if I can do both. I'm going to be running Sand Attack, Scorching Sands, and Shadow Ball, and I'm pairing it up with a Tentacruel and a Shadow Drapion. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at XL Palossand in action in the Ultra League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a great lead Tentacruel versus Virizion. Opponent sends in their own Tentacruel, and now it's time for Palossand to feast. Palossand has a dominating matchup over Tentacruel due to the fact that you're heavily resisting the poison jabs, so they're never going to be able to farm you down, and you can survive a Scald. So I can tank the Scald, and I'm going to be able to make 2 Scorching Sands before they make their second move, forcing switch advantage or shield advantage. Opponent commits the shield, they're going to give me shield advantage, and I'm very okay with this. I'm okay with letting Palossand go. The reason being is their Virizion is not going to have much play against the Tentacruel or the Shadow Drapion up energy. So they can send in Virizion, up a shield and up energy. There's zero excuse to not full send the nuke, so I will go for the Sludge Bomb, throw one more, switch, sneak, and catch the Sacred Sword onto the Tentacruel. In the back, they have Tentacruel's worst nightmare as in comes Jellicent. But I should still be in a terrific spot because I have that Shadow Drapion, and Drapion is just so good into the remainder of their team. They are at enough for a Shadow Ball. At this point, I have 2 shields. I haven't used them yet. I should shield something. Realistically, I don't have to shield Tentacruel to win this game, but I was thinking, you know what? I really don't want to end in a situation where I get farmed down with 2 shields. I go for the Scald. This time I do actually get the debuff, so I didn't get it on the first, but I do get it on the second. And now I can switch into the Drapion because my switch timer is up and fire off the Crunch. Crunch to the Jellicent is going to be shielded. Jellicent returning fire with the Surf, but I know that I can survive a Surf, so I am going to let this through. Jellicent does not switch, and that means I get my Crunch off. Crunch is going to be able to pick up the knockout. They can send back in the Virizion, but the Virizion is just much too low. I'm going to let this through as I should be able to, I was going to say, get knocked out and win the game with Tentacruel, but they go for a Leaf Blade, a little bit of bad manners. So I'm going to return the favor with a Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb KOs Virizion, and we're able to take the win. Hopping into the next match, we've got a Nightmare lead Tentacruel versus Registeel. I save switch to the Shadow Drapion, and my opponent is probably more than happy to stay in here. This is not a good matchup for Drapion. I will fire off the Crunch. The Crunch does get a defense drop, however. That is one step towards helping this matchup become slightly better. They go for the Zap Cannon. Zap Cannon will get the debuff, which it almost always will, and that is a little bit unfortunate. I will fire off the Crunch, but to be fair, I got pretty lucky with the Crunch debuff, so I can't be too upset over that Zap Cannon. I'm going to be able to make it to another Crunch, winning charge attack priority over the Registeel. I don't really want to play for switch, but rather, I'm just going to go for a full farm down with the Palossand. So I'm going to send in the Palossand. They're not switching, which means they should only have 1 counter to this thing. I try for the farm down, but the Registeel lives on 1 HP, makes it to a Zap Cannon, and Zap Cannon does debuff me. In comes Tapu Fini. I aggressively switch to the Tentacruel, and in the back, they have Trevenant. And this game actually feels quite winnable. I am going to be committing the shield, and I get baited with a Seed Bomb. No, I build up to the Blizzard. I want to pressure the shield, and I will fire off the Scald. The Scald is going to be shielded. I get the attack drop, so some good luck going my way in this game. I'm just firing off a Scald. This time I want them to not shield. I just need to get this as low as I possibly can. Due to the debuff, I know I can live a Shadow Ball, so I am going to let this through. They bait with the Seed Bomb again. And now, I think I can just win the game with Palossand probably. So that's not going to KO. They send in the Tapu Fini. I get the Scald off as well. They're never going to be shielding this. So now it's all up to Palossand. Palossand, I'm going to fire off the Scorching Sands, fishing for an attack debuff. The Scorching Sands will connect. I do not get the debuff, but I have so much stored energy from farming down the Registeel. I'm firing off Scorching Sands number 2. We get the double shield from the opponent. Now the question will be, can they make double Surf before I get my 3rd Scorching Sands? This will be very close. It's going to be a race, and Palossand gets to the Scorching Sands. Palossand is a Tapu Fini counter confirmed, knocking it out. Sand Attack farming down a Trevenant and taking the win. We've got a toxic Pokemon on our screen in the next match as I lead Tentacruel into Zygarde. Even in the Ultra League, Zygarde proves to be an extreme nuisance. My opponent is going to farm up a ton of energy, and I am not baiting. I am full sending this double super effective Blizzard, but the opponent does respect it with a shield. That's quite unfortunate. Zygarde players love to bait. They can't stop baiting. So I am going to call it. It is just going to be the crunch bait. I'm calling this again. This is very okay with me. Unfortunately, they do get the defense drop, so I will fire off the Scald. I don't want to give them the farm down, so instead, I'm just going to aggressively switch into the Drapion. I'm just going to look to farm up a ton of energy with the Drapion. My opponent does make it to an Earthquake, so I will finally respect it with a shield, and they finally stop baiting. There is going to be that Earthquake right on cue. I'm firing off the Crunch. Crunch is going to get them low. I get the defense drop, but even then, I can't farm this down. Unfortunately, Zygarde just has too much bulk, and of course, being a ground type, poison damage, not going to do a whole lot. So I do lead with a lot of energy, which is nice. They send in for Alligator, and having a nice energy lead here is very valuable. I'm able to land the Crunch. I'm firing off Crunch number 2, and this will just about knock out. They can survive it, barely. They will commit the shield. They're farming up quite a lot of energy, and this is going to be a very interesting endgame. I still do have a pretty low health Tentacruel, which is basically only good for a catch. I'm going to send in the Palossand, and I am going to be forced to commit the shield here, as Hydro Cannon would be absolutely devastating. In the back, it's Jellicent, and this is looking dire. I fire off the Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to do a ton of damage. 3 more hexes, then I have to switch to the Tentacruel, and I get the catch. Hold on, is this possible? I know they're 3 hexes away from a Surf, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw 9 Sand Attacks, win Charge Attack priority, and I think I can outpace. They should be 8 turns off, and I'm 7 Sand Attacks off. I'm farming up, I make it to the move, but the game forces an overtap to a CMP tie that I do not win. Looking back at the footage, I should have been able to outpace there, but unfortunately, the game just says no. We've got a mirror lead in the next match, Tentacruel versus Tentacruel. I know that my Tentacruel's energy will be more useful versus what they have in the back, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tank the Scald and look to switch into the Drapion. In comes Drapion. Opponent sends out a Pokemon that has been extinct for absolute ages. In comes Cobalion. Cobalion has basically fallen out of usage, mainly due to the fact that Pokemon like Annihilape exist, and if you get a Cobalion onto Annihilape, you just auto-lose the game. But in my case, it's basically Drapion's hardest counter, so this is a really, really bad situation to be in. I did get the Crunch debuff on the first time, but my opponent is not going to let me make a third Crunch. They're just going to fire off the Sacred Sword and pick up the KO. But I have a wall for Cobalion as I can send in Palossand. Palossand farms up a ton of energy. Opponent sends out Jellicent. Okay, this game actually feels like it could potentially be winnable. The Shadow Ball lands. That does a ton of damage. Opponent actually only goes for the Surf here. That's okay. I will commit the shield. I'm just going to need a ton of energy on Palossand to try and win. So I'm going to try for the Surf Catch. I'm unsuccessful with the Surf Catch, which is a little bit unfortunate, but they will get to land the Shadow Ball, and now I get to overfarm with the Tentacruel. Farming to 100 energy, Scald will be able to pick up the knockout, and now this will be interesting. They do have the very low health Cobalion, and they still have the Tentacruel, but I have so much energy stored. In comes Cobalion. They throw the Stone Edge. Stone Edge is going to be enough to pick up the knockout. I send in Palossand, and they're going to switch back into the Tentacruel. I'm going to need to start spamming out these Scorching Sands. If I can get a debuff, which I do, I think that I can live a Scald. So I think this is actually playable for me. Scorching Sands number 2 is going to be shielded up. This time I do not get the debuff, and I'm just going to keep fishing for debuffs, because the more debuffs I get, the healthier I will be. My opponent will fire off energy. I'm going to no-shield the Scald. It's debuffed, so I think I can survive it, and I can. Opponent firing off another move. I will commit the shield. I just have to hope that it's not Acid Spray. It's Acid Spray. The switch to Cobalion, which survives the Sand Attacks on 1 HP, making the Sacred Sword. If I got that farm down, I win the game, but by the narrowest of margins. Unfortunately, we end up with the loss. Much better lead in the next match, talking about another basically extinct Ultra League Pokemon, Obstagoon. Anytime I see Obstagoon these days, I'm thinking they're just running Double Charm, and if they're running Double Charm, they're going to have a truly terrible day, because the entire Obstagoon Double Charm team loses very hard to Tentacruel. So they have to expend resources to beat the Tentacruel just for me to have another poison type in the back with the Shadow Drapion. So if it is Double Charm, then this should just basically be a win off of team comps. I'll fire off the Scald, they shield, and that's the first big indicator that it is going to be Double Charm. Opponent actually does get Scald debuff there, which is quite nice. They go for the Night Slash, farming up energy, and now my opponent sends out a Shadow Granbull. Oh no, Trainer running a toxic team. They get one shot with the Sludge Bomb, and we're now in the driver's seat of this one. It is going to be the Alolan Ninetales with Charm in the back. I can fire off the Sludge Bomb to force the final shield. Yeah, and I'm just in a completely one position here. The Ninetales is now going to be met with the Tentacruel because I saved that from earlier, understanding that I can get a couple extra poison jabs here. I get to land the Scald. Switch Clock will be up soon. In comes the Palossand, and I know that a Weather Ball is not going to knock out here. So I can let that through. And now I'm going to be able to send attack all the way down and leave with energy. And here's the thing. They're running Double Charm. I think it's a terrible team. I don't think people should run it. They have yet to quit, so we're going for the bad manners. Disrespectful, triple resist this Shadow Ball. Get that Double Charm out of here. And we're able to take the win. We've got a bit of a core breaker on the lead. Tentacruel versus Giratina. This is the Dragon Breath Giratina, which is a lot worse for me. Now, Dragon Breath Giratina can honestly even do pretty well against Drapion. I do have Blizzard though, and Blizzard is for this exact matchup. So I'm going to farm up. I overfarm slightly just in case they go for the catch, and I will fire off the Blizzard. Blizzard to the Giratina will connect, dealing massive, massive damage. I send in the Drapion. Opponent is going to respond with Greedent. Definitely not a bad thing to bait out the Greedent, but things could get a little bit uncomfortable because the Giratina still has quite a lot of energy, and of course Shadow Sneak will hit Palossand for super effective damage. They will go for the Body Slam. That's going to do some decent damage, and I'm firing off another Crunch. I just need whatever damage I can get onto this Greedent. Greedent is going to go for the Body Slam. It's going to get me low, but it will not KO. They have very limited fast move pressure here because Mudshot does basically no damage. I'm able to make it to another Crunch. Looks like that was Charge Attack priority, and I'm hoping they shield here. It would be way better for me if they shield, but they actually let it go. In the back, it's Tentacruel, and this feels winnable. Aggressive switch to the Palossand, and I end up firing off the Scorching Sands, and Scorching Sands will be shielded up by my opponent. I am going to respect the Scald, as Scald would do quite a lot of damage here. Opponent Acid Sprays me. Oh no, this is now incredibly bad, because I am now 2 stages debuffed, which means they can Scald to grab the final shield, and then land a Shadow Sneak on my -2 defense Palossand, which is going to do way more damage than it typically would. That's a diabolical bait from my opponent. Oh my goodness. They're going to be able to connect with the Shadow Sneak. That does a ton of damage. The switch to the Tentacruel forces their energy. This is going to get me very low. My goal here is to leave them as low as possible because I just want farm on Palossand. So I zero bubble this. It does not KO, and now we're just going to sit at a standoff. If either one of us KOs each other, then it gives the other person farm. So we're both going to sit here, neither one of us knocking each other out. I'm going to wait until there's like a couple seconds left on my clock, but they wait till their clock's up. In comes the Tentacruel. The thing is, Scorching Sand is super effective, but it does not KO. I think I'm going to need a catch. I think I have their energy right here, so I farm up. I switch to the Drapion. I don't get the catch. They live with 1 HP remaining. If I had just stayed in, I could have been okay. But unfortunately, a very close game ends in a loss. We've got a decent lead in the next match, and I actually get to complete an Explore a Kilometer task because of how much I was pacing during these battles. Tentacruel into Greedent, despite the fact that Greedent hits for super effective with Mudshot, is surprisingly okay. Opponent goes for the Crunch debuff there, and they don't get it, which is a terrific feeling. I'm just going to keep spamming out Scalds. Are they actually going for another Crunch here? They are going for another Crunch, and they get the debuff. Oh, that is unfortunate. I will make it to the Scald, winning Charge Attack priority. The Scald is going to get them pretty low, so they are going to commit the shield. After this, I'm just going to be switching into the Shadow Drapion. So I can send in the Drapion, save the Tentacruel for later in case I need some fast move pressure. They are going to fire off the Body Slam instantly. I know I win Charge Attack priority, so I can throw 4 Poison Stings and then go for the Crunch. Game stutters a little bit there, but thankfully it catches back up, so I will win charge attack priority. Crunch picks up the knockout, down goes Greedent. They send out Tentacruel, and Tentacruel has no fast move pressure here. I have a big energy advantage, and I am up a shield as well. So unless the Tentacruel is able to land a move, they can't really do much of anything here. They're in kind of an awkward spot. They tank 2 crunches. I'm fine with shielding this, because if they're bringing in a Tentacruel into the Drapion, they do not have a good response for Drapion in the back. So now I can farm up a ton of energy. Opponent tries to go for a catch onto Weezing, and I get to send out Palossand. But here's the thing. They're probably running Brutal Swing, and they are. The Brutal Swing will hit for substantial damage. I could really benefit from a Scorching Sands debuff here. It's a 30% chance. They got the Crunch debuff earlier, and I get the Scorching Sands debuff. What a clutch turn of events. I can now live the Brutal Swing. The luck ends up evening out. They are going to be firing off another Brutal Swing, but Palossand, still with a shield up, is going to be able to overfarm, go for the Scorching Sands, and pick up the knockout. All they have left in the back is going to be that Tentacruel. Tentacruel forced to fire off energy because they cannot Poison Jab down the ground Ghost type. The Scald is going to connect. They concede the match, hopping into the final match, and this is actually the same opponent from 2 games ago. Unfortunately, I didn't get their name in the recording, but I went back and checked my journal after, and it was the same opponent. When you're playing at a decent elo in the Ultra League, you run into a lot of the same people. I go for the Blizzard, this time throwing instantly because last time I overfarmed, but they get the prediction right, and they have switched up their team. They're now running Giratina plus Feraligatr. Feraligatr, definitely not ideal for me, and them catching that Blizzard is devastating. The Scald will connect. At this point, I'm in kind of a rough spot. I know that I can survive a Hydro Cannon here, because Hydro Cannon doesn't do a lot, but they will get that farm down. I'm going to send in the Shadow Drapion. Drapion, I think I can Poison Sting down here. It'll be very, very close, though. The Hydro Cannon is going to connect. I do get that farm down. Let's see. They switched their team from last time, and they switched to a Palossand team. So, unfortunately, I lost the game versus them, but they were inspired by the choice of Pokemon, and they're now running their own Palossand team. That is incredibly cool. I will shield up. They will bait with the Scorching Sands. I'm, at this point, just going to fire off the Scorching Sands to force the shield, because if they want to grab my final shield, then they are going to have to commit the first shield themselves. I did get a Crunch debuff, which is nice, because now I'm just going to be able to shield and just continue this full farm down. Opponent staying in here, trying to make the move, but they do not get there. In comes the Giratina. Giratina going to be smacked with a Shadow Ball. The Shadow Ball does get shielded. The switch to the Drapion. Drapion, they can go for the Dragon Claw here, but it will not KO. Shadow Drapion, an absolute menace, withstands the damage, makes it to the Crunch, and Crunch will put them into Scorching Sands range. The Crunch gets them low. Giratina gets the farm down. Palossand able to get to the Scorching Sands. So unfortunately, I threw 2 games ago versus them by going for a catch and failing it. They switched to a Palossand team, and in the mirror of Palossand teams, I'm able to take the win. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to try out XL Palossand for the first time. It's definitely a bit of a tricky Pokemon to use, considering there's Pokemon like Feraligatr that just absolutely thrash it. But I did really like getting to use it, and I'm excited for potential future Ultra League limited metas. As far as my results with the team, I did end up going negative. The one caveat I'll add is I did have 2 losses that were due to lag, like the one game where I was 7 sand attacks away, being 7 turns away from the move. They were 8 turns away from theirs, but unfortunately, the game lagged, which forced an overtap, which made me lose charge attack priority there instead of outpacing. And there was another game as well where I did end up lagging. So if you take out the lag games, I would have gone even with the team. But of course, that's revising history, so to speak. I did go negative with it, which is a bit unfortunate. But overall, I did have a lot of fun. And honestly, that was my goal for today. Not worry about ELO as much and have some fun along the way. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.